Hello, I'm John Bruton, a volunteer with the Literacy Council of Frederick County. I'm here to present Reading Vocabulary from the Tutor Training Review and Enrichment Series. In this topic, we will look at vocabulary as it relates to reading for both ESL and basic literacy students. Since words are the building blocks of language, vocabulary is an important focus, especially for beginning and intermediate students. We will show you why vocabulary is important, talk about when to do vocabulary instruction, and give you some strategies for teaching vocabulary to your student. We define vocabulary as the collection of words we know the meaning of when we hear, say, read, and write them. We use words to both receive information and to express ourselves. Vocabulary instruction for beginning ESL students starts with listening and speaking, using oral vocabulary. But vocabulary instruction in reading and writing includes print vocabulary, which we will discuss now. Vocabulary is the second of the four components of reading instruction. When you read, you decode printed words by using your knowledge of alphabetics, even if you aren't aware of it. You then connect those words to your oral vocabulary. The larger your oral vocabulary, the more likely you are to recognize the word you have decoded. If a word isn't part of your oral vocabulary and you aren't sure you have decoded the word correctly, you may be unsure of the meaning of the word and the text. Vocabulary supports fluency. You need a large print vocabulary to be able to read fluently. A large vocabulary helps you to decode and recognize words quickly and accurately. When you know the meaning of a word, you can add the proper rhythm and emphasis as you read, key elements of fluency. Building vocabulary also improves reading comprehension. You must know the meaning of individual words to understand the meaning of the text as a whole. The larger your vocabulary, the more types of material you will understand. Here are some general guidelines for vocabulary instruction. First, identify and pre-teach unfamiliar words that your student needs to know before reading the text. Second, repeat the vocabulary word often, at least 5 times. Your student will learn a new word better if they practice both speaking it and writing it. Next, general vocabulary instruction should be both broad and deep. In other words, work to expand the size or breadth of your students' vocabulary and improve the depth of their understanding. Depth involves teaching nuanced differences in the meaning of words, like cheap and inexpensive, or take and bring, and explaining different word meanings within specific contexts. For example, words like pool, stand, and racket. Finally, students need to know these 3 word learning strategies. A, how common prefixes and suffixes like un, dis, and est affect the meanings and usage of words. B, how to use context clues to identify word meanings. And C, how to use a dictionary online, on their phone, or in hard copy. A reading vocabulary lesson has 3 parts: before, during, and after reading, because you use different strategies in each of these stages. Before reading is when you should preview lesson text to identify words your students may not know. Then pre-teach these words using direct instruction before your student reads. Limit new vocabulary words in a lesson to a manageable number. 5 is a good number for beginning students, 10 for intermediate and advanced. During reading, you and your student can return to the text to further study the pre-taught vocabulary, as well as any additional unknown words that crop up. Except when practicing fluency, you should stop during reading to provide a definition when needed. This helps your student comprehend the text. After reading, provide activities to practice the new vocabulary. Keep in mind that you don't have to use every activity in every lesson. You can overwhelm your student with too much information. Here's a routine to use when pre-teaching new words to your student. You can vary this process or do other activities that have similar parts. Start by showing the new word and reading it aloud. Then ask your student to divide the word into syllables and have them write it down. The ability to spell words correctly heavily influences a person's written vocabulary. Dividing words into syllables helps a lot with spelling. Next, ask your student if they have some understanding of the word before giving them the definition. If they do, you can easily build on what they already know. Finally, ask your student to put the definition in their own words and use the word in sentences related to their own experience. This helps them incorporate the new word into their vocabulary. Now watch this video of a vocabulary lesson. Even though the video shows face-to-face lessons, the technique the tutor uses is easily transferred to an online lesson format.
So our next lesson is titled Help in an Emergency. Now, the book has identified some words, and I read through the story and picked out some words that would be good to talk about before you read. These are words that you may or may not know, but they're good words to learn because you may read or hear them in a lot of different places. Going over the words before you read the story will help you to understand the story better. Okay, let's take a look at, for example, this word. Tersely. Have you ever heard that word before?
I don't know. I think I may have.
Well, maybe you've heard of this word, terse. That's the root word for tersely.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Let's take a look at it. A lot of letters. Okay, listen to it. Tersely. How many syllables did you hear?
2.
That's right. 2 syllables. And where were they? What are they?
Terse and lee.
Very good. Now, if you were to break that apart, where would you divide that word? Draw a line through it. Excellent. That's exactly right. Now, say the first syllable and write it for me.
Terse.
And say the second syllable and write it.
Lee.
Exactly right. Good job. Now, you said you may have heard of the word tersely or terse before. What do you think it means?
I think it means meanly, like to talk to someone meanly.
Okay, you're very close, and I totally get why you would say that. So, tersely means to speak to someone using very few words, right? Like if you were at work and you're talking to one of your coworkers and another coworker says, "Be quiet." Okay, that would be an example of speaking tersely, but it's not necessarily mean, right? Or in an emergency situation, maybe a fireman or a paramedic, EMT, speaks tersely because there's no time, right? They don't have a lot of time to talk. So do you think you understand what tersely means, or would you like a few more examples?
No, I think I know what it means.
Okay. Can you tell me what tersely means in your own words?
Tersely. To talk short with someone. To be short with them.
I like that definition. Let's write that down.
To talk shortly. To be short with them.
Great. Can you think of a time when you spoke shortly to someone or someone spoke shortly to you and then used tersely in a sentence about that time?
I tersely said to my kids, "Get out," while I was cooking dinner.
Yeah, good. And I think that's a good example of being short, but not necessarily mean, right? So let's write that sentence down.
I tersely said to my kids, "Get out," while I was cooking Dinner.
Awesome. Let's look at another word.
You probably noticed that the tutor validated the student's current understanding, then built on that understanding to explain the actual definition of the word. It is important to praise the student whenever possible, even if they are not completely right. Phrases like "good try" or "I can see why you might think that" encourage them to keep trying. The word chart activity is a variation of traditional flashcards and could go along with the process we just talked about. The student writes a new word on the front of an index card and a definition in their own words on the back. They then write a sentence using the word and an antonym or a word with the opposite meaning. The process of choosing antonyms helps students explore the meaning of the word beyond the dictionary definition. That's definitely true for the word hot. When your student chooses an antonym, they are demonstrating the depth of their understanding of the word. You can point out to your student that some words, such as orange, don't have opposites. A more advanced student might be interested to learn that fantastic has more than one opposite. Depending on what someone means by fantastic, the antonym could be realistic or it could be horrible. One of the other benefits of using word charts for vocabulary practice is that the cards create a physical record of how the student is learning, how much the student is learning. Your student can see the stack of cards getting bigger as their vocabulary expands, and that can be very motivating. And the cards can be used for future reinforcement. And last but not least, don't forget the power of video and music to reinforce vocabulary. They are very powerful tools. One student told her tutor that the English she knew came from watching American TV and listening to songs on the radio. You can find many songs emphasizing different levels of vocabulary on YouTube. There are many other fun ways to help your student practice and expand their vocabulary. Activities such as Word Builder and Word Matrix and other ideas in your handouts add variety to their lessons. Although you may have to adapt them to virtual learning, off-the-shelf games can be a lot of fun and will add more variety. Games like Taboo and Password are great vocabulary builders. These games involve some variation of describing a word for your partner to guess. We've already mentioned picture files, noting that you can search Google Images on the fly using your phone or computer to find an image of a particular word or concept that is difficult to understand, such as jumper, used as a piece of clothing, or the word rust. A picture dictionary is helpful not only for building vocabulary, but also for developing a dialogue and for communicating with your student. You can use the dictionary to illustrate words on issues or topics that come up during a lesson. The new Oxford Picture Dictionary, shown on this slide, illustrates the meaning of over 2,400 useful vocabulary words in the context of everyday living. It is great for teaching word categories because of its layout. This is a valuable resource, and as with many other books, the Literacy Council has copies for you to borrow, or you may want to purchase one. There is an interactive online student edition available from the publisher. There are also YouTube videos at Oxford Dictionary YouTube. There are many other websites to help you with teaching vocabulary listed on our interactive online website handouts. There are many resources available to you. I hope this lesson has helped you to address some of them. Thank you.